down on me. But
Ladies,
Gentlemen,
married people,
courting couples,
and all our single folk,
we've got something just for you.
Marriage Mentors.
Sky 99.5 FM Reloaded is the place to be every second and fourth Thursday from 9 p.m.
to 11 p.m.
with yours truly, Mr. and Mrs. Mahon. Join the conversation as we dive deep into the taboo topics around love, marriage, and relationships. Topics like sex and intimacy,
How to live and cleave,
money,
trust issues,
infidelity,
singles in the church,
and
more.
more. So join us every second and fourth Thursday from 9 p.m.
to 11 p.m.
right here on Sky 99.5 FM Reloaded.
Ladies,
Gentlemen,
married people,
courting couples,
and all our single folk,
we've got something just for you.
Marriage Mentors.
Sky 99.5 FM Reloaded is the place to be every second and fourth Thursday from 9 p.m.
to 11 p.m.
with yours truly, Mr. and Mrs. Mahon. Join the conversation as we dive deep into the taboo topics around love, marriage, and relationships. Topics like sex and intimacy,
How to live and cleave,
money,
trust issues,
infidelity,
singles in the church,
and
more.
more. So join us every second and fourth Thursday from 9 p.m.
to 11 p.m.
right here
on
on
Sky
Sky 99.5 FM Reloaded.
And of course, a good evening to all of our Sky family everywhere. Welcome once again to Marriage Mentors. Good evening to you, Mrs. Mahon.
Good evening.
And how are you?
I'm doing great.
All is well?
Well is all.
Are you ready for this evening segment? Well, we have to kind of do it like that because this is packaged separately.
Yes.
Yeah. So we have to kind of do that. So, I know it feels weird, but yes. So welcome to Marriage Mentors. Hope you all are ready. And of course, we are going to be touching on a touchy subject.
Someone said to me today, ooh, touchy.
So yes, we are now just going to be talking about, this evening, we're going to be diving into the topic of ego.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the times when we hear that small word, a lot of big feelings come to mind.
True.
Very small word, but big feelings. Like
If it is you tell someone about the ego, they'll be like,
they grab their pearls,
me?
they clutch their pearls immediately.
What? I don't know what you mean.
Yeah. It's always that small word is attached to a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like
a little 3-letter word.
Yeah. It's not, like cow. It's such a small word for such a big animal.
True.
And mosquito is quite the opposite.
True.
Mosquito should have been a cow, and cow a mosquito. Like elephant is a big word for a big animal, but we didn't do it, so But yes, ego. And a lot of the times we hear the word, big feelings and emotions come up whenever we think about it, or someone tells us about our ego, we tell someone about their ego. But what really is ego?
Well, for those of you who do not know, it's okay. Let me give you an example of it, right? Instead of giving a full definition, let's give an example of it. Lynden is full of himself.
Yeah. Oh, you're throwing words.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm not throwing words for
How
you.
you could say a thing like that? Clutching my pearls.
There is a particular word called pride. Let's say, for example, he's full of pride. He's too prideful. Let's say, for instance, some example. Let's say you're working on a project.
Yeah.
And you want it a particular way, but that particular way it may not necessarily be to your likeness, but because you have a group of people that likes things like that, or you think you need to prove a point to those people, that's not three-letter word. You see ego? So I think that's the best example. Not that I'm picking on you, no.
No.
I'm just
I am
using you.
I am the GP of the
Yes,
not the general practitioner, but the guinea pig.
I'm just using you as an example. But
Mhm,
in its simplest terms, that's how I could put it
mhm.
by using an example.
So you find I have a big ego.
No, I didn't say that. I mean, long time they used to say,
If the cat
if
fit,
it fall in your garden, pick
Mhm.
it up and plant it. I never understood what that meant until
now,
no, not now. Until I grew older. I was like, why is talking about what?
and gardening.
What that had to do with anything? But no, I got to understand it afterwards.
When you got married.
No, before that.
Okay.
Before that.
Just to give a bit of a definition
Mm-hmm.
for what an ego is, or
Mhm.
when we say ego, what we're talking about, it refers to that part of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
namely your self-esteem or how you view
Mhm.
yourself. It's an exaggerated sense of self-importance,
Mhm.
right? That part of you that you blow up like a balloon
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it swells,
Mm-hmm.
you inflate it because it's only something that really is living inside of your own head, not necessarily something that is in reality other persons share the same view.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that particular thing, it may be a trait,
Yeah.
it may be a skill, it may be your self-esteem entirely.
Mm-hmm.
Something that you treasure that you overinflate beyond
Yeah.
its actual measure, that you sensationalize in your own mind,
Mm-hmm.
and persons don't share that same view.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, that's what you call your ego.
Mm-hmm.
And it causes one to become conceited.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, when, growing up to hearing that particular word,
Mhm.
you always hear, well, it has its good and bad in it, right? And I didn't agree at first with it having an advantage rather than a disadvantage.
Yeah.
But looking into it more,
Mhm.
thinking of it more, I was like, it could be somewhat good to the individual.
Mhm.
And when I say the individual, one who has the ego,
Mhm.
right? Let's say, for instance, if it is, I have not ego.
No, I'm just laughing because there was this statement that just ran through my mind as you said it. Beauty's in the eye of the ego.
When, like say, for instance, if it is, I am battling with that, well, I shouldn't use the term battling. If it is, I have that as an issue,
we
right?
all have ego,
Right?
to different degrees.
Yeah.
It depends on how big you blow the balloon.
So, let's say, for instance, I am in that position, but the good side of it is that's like, if it is, I'm using the example of the project, right?
Oh, let's use this. If Lynden Mahon thinks he is the best voice in radio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. If it is you think that, then it's going to cause you to work on yourself even more because you want to be in the competition. You want to be ahead of everybody else. Right? If it is you look at it like that, then it could benefit in some way. But I don't agree with it, being an advantage to us in a big way because we could become very swell-headed.
Yeah.
And from the time we reach to that place, because think about it, with that example that you used, you're very, very close to looking down at people. No,
I'm just kidding.
you're very, very close to looking down at people,
Yeah.
to considering
It's a
them
very thin
less
line.
than you.
It's a very thin,
Mhm.
because you're now escalating your sense of importance.
Yeah.
And we can begin to see how that creates problems
Mm-hmm.
in the way we relate to people,
Yeah.
particularly in
Mhm.
marriage.
So like this evening, yes, we just highlighted the advantage of it. But even though it is a tiny, tiny, tiny advantage, it still has a little advantage to it. But this evening, we want to single out the disadvantages of it when it comes to us as individuals, and when it pertains to any relationship that we have, whether it's marriage, whether it's, a friendship with a male or a female, whether it's your child or your sibling, somebody, at the end of the day, it's all across the board.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you as the individual have an issue,
Yeah.
it could affect others around you and in close proximity, and those who are even far from you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It could. So these are the things that we have to consider when we even think about the word ego, because a lot of us not even aware that we have this kind of, I don't even know how to describe it.
About us.
A way, yeah, it's a way.
and that is the thing. The moment you begin
As you said that, I remember the scripture. There's a way that seemed right.
right on time.
Mhm.
Then there's this other one that came to mind a while ago. You're not that important. You're
Exactly. I still can't get over that
Don't
scripture.
consider yourself more highly than you should.
One of the versions
Mhm.
of the Bible, I can't remember if it was the NLT or one of them more American standard version. I can't remember which one it is.
NLT.
But someone of them said, because you're not that important anyway. It was like
No, sometimes because whenever you think of an ego, it's like a balloon.
Yeah.
And the best way to
I like
quickly
that,
deflate a balloon
I like that
is to pop
example. Mm-hmm.
it. That's the best way to quickly deflate a balloon. Pop it. That's where we get the term, you burst my bubble.
I need to put that in my notes. Mhm.
You burst my
Yeah.
bubble.
Like in Trinidad, we'd have to say, yeah, a bossy bubble.
Mhm.
No, the bust my bubble.
And your head
Mhm.
swelling. That's why we
Yes.
use those particular terms.
When I was small, I remember that. I remember working on my craft so much.
Mhm.
Being so mindful of the way that's, because a lot of you know that I'm into music, I'm into singing, and I will always learn stuff about music when it pertains to music, and doing vocal exercises and constantly going through songs, because one of the things that I hated was to look at a paper while singing,
Mhm.
because that restricts me. I can't deal with it. I don't like to even sing with on a mic that's on a stand. I don't mind the chord. Once the chord long enough, I good.
Mhm.
But you see, I get on a stand. I mean, I was trained. I was trained to sing like that, but after a while, you just forget that part of the training because you just want to be free, right? And I remember someone took that the wrong way, and they said to me, you're real swell-headed. I'm like, what do you mean by that? How you could say that? And he said, yeah, you're so into yourself and into your singing and into this and into that. But he just misunderstood the reason why it is I was doing it. So even though this is why I said it has an advantage, but at the same time is what you do with the thing.
I think one of the things we should do is not try to look at it having two sides.
Yeah.
An ego is not necessarily a healthy thing. And it's something that you overinflate, or you assert your importance over someone else.
Mm-hmm.
That in its entirety is antichrist.
Mm-hmm.
So we can never say that there is a good side to it.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing your self-worth is another thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think that is what we tie up.
we can't tie those two things together.
Because when we see it talks about self-esteem. Remember, when you think about self-esteem, it is self-worth, right? So when it is you look at those two things, sometimes we put it together and we class it in one category where it isn't.
You know, if you could think about it as a speedometer or a gauge, a pressure gauge, 0 being low self-esteem, 50 being good self-esteem, and anything over 50 being egotistical. And from the moment you begin to cross that pressure level, it now begins to get swell-headed.
Yeah.
And if it is you look at, just like in your car, you have, well, depending on the kind of car that you have, but in ours, you have, I can't remember what the smallest bar is down at the bottom, but then you have economy, and then above that, it's power, right? So depending on the amount of pressure you put on the pedal of your ego, it moves beyond economy and then switches to overdrive, where it gets into the red. Like your speedometer has a red kind of bar on it that says, hey, the reps, whether it is the one with the reps or your actual mileage in terms of speed, when you begin to max out those levels, that's danger. Once you reach red, in this case, anything above that 50 point, if we were to give it some sort of imagery, it begins to get into a very unhealthy zone.
Yeah.
And that's where swell-headed behavior starts. Because you can have low self-esteem where you don't consider yourself anything, and you build that up to knowing your self-worth, and you have a measure of confidence. You no longer have to feel like you're below, you're not underestimating yourself, you're not asserting yourself above anybody else. The moment you begin to assert yourself and think you're more important than other people, well, they're just plebs and I am this. And
You're not that important
you're not
anyway.
that's danger zone. That's danger zone. And we can literally categorize what an ego looks like. What it sounds like. The moment you begin to move beyond the actuality of that particular thing that you feel confident in, whether it is your personality, you have this banging personality, you've worked on your looks, and you look at yourself in the mirror and you practice everything, how you appear in front of people, all of that you practice, and you're confident in those things. But the moment that begins to blend with, oh God, she all of that, she ain't seen how she face screw up, and that's where it begins to get very nasty and toxic. That's when your gauge is going over the mark, and it gets really poisonous. So we could separate the two and see what's good and what's bad. There's no good side to an ego. Ego asserts itself over someone else and creates a hierarchy and say, well, I'm this and I'm that, and don't you know who I am? That's why I'm here and you're there. It creates a separation that says, I'm more important than you are. And that's problematic. That is where ego steps in.
So here's what, right? What we're going to do is we're going to rename the topic.
Why?
For today. It's no longer ego, but it's knowing the difference between your self-esteem and your ego.
we could still go with ego because that's what we set out to talk about. And the dangers of it. We're not really talking about self-esteem. We're going to talk about ego, because If it is we talk about self-esteem, it could take us into
But
another,
we just learned
another
about
place.
the difference between self-esteem and ego. So that's why I renamed it. Because the first part of marriage mentors, we learned that
Yes,
from
we
our
did that.
teacher.
Yeah. But you don't want to begin to mash that pedal
Mhm.
of self-esteem so hard that you begin to bruise people, because that's what happens. Ego is going to bruise. And just imagine someone with this big ego, they go into every environment and they feel they all that and a tub of ice cream. What was the term we were hearing this week?
All that's in a bag of chips.
A bag of chips. That's right. All that in a bag of chips. You feel you're all that, and it's not really so. Especially when you're overinflating yourself. Yes, there are some people, they become well known. They're really good at what they do. But from the moment they begin to toxify the thing by thinking that they're better than someone else, that's problematic. That's where they toot their own horn. Yeah, I'm this and I'm that. Yeah, it's good for other people to say that you are good at what you do. Self-praise, as we always heard, is no praise at all.
True.
Knowing what your skill level is and knowing your ability is all well and good. That's wonderful. But you never throw that in anybody else's face. It's like, well, I'm big, you're small, I'm right, you're wrong, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's a very toxic statement. Or you tell someone who might be a new driver and you've been driving for a few years, you kind of lord your skill over them and say, well, you'll never get it. You'll never be as good as I am. That's ego. That's where ego begins to flare up. That's what it looks like.
And this time they're bouncing up all over the place. And you don't know. And they'll put the blame on somebody else. You see how toxic that thing is?
You don't know who I am. Like, I saw a video the other day. This person with a really expensive car decided to take up 2 parking spots. They parked in the middle of 2 spots and said, well, because my car is so expensive and it's the most expensive car in this parking lot, I will take up 2 spots because I don't want anyone scratch my car. That's being inconsiderate. That's it's asserting your sense of importance, your personal sense of importance over someone else. Importance, there are many things that have become relative in the world that we live in today. And that's problematic, where we think that this makes someone more important over the other person. Because I work for more money than you, I'm more important. Because I do this, the type of job that I do, I'm a lawyer, so I am more important than the person who is collecting the garbage. When really everybody has a major role to play.
Yeah.
One can't do without the other. Many people look down at sanitary workers. Well,
If they
let them not
strike,
work now.
if they go on strike, what happens?
Now your house gonna be stink, overrun with worms. But we think that it's good to look down on someone who might be doing the dirty job, but they're very important. A dirty job as a farmer, someone who takes care of animals. What would it be? What kind of world would we be in if you did not have animal doctors?
Yeah.
Somebody has to do the dirty work. Plumbers. When your toilet clogged, you can't look down on the person. You don't know what to do. It's your own mess and you can't even deal with it. And that person has the skill to do it. And they confidently do it. But you see, there's so many things within our brain that has become the order of the world that we live in today, that says, well, this is more affluent, this is more important, this is more status built than this thing. And that is where ego comes in.
Yeah.
So we've got to kind of move away from those things. Want to say good evening, going out to let me see, Deborah and Tapana. Keish, good evening. No, I didn't. Naomi, I didn't say grab my purse. It's pearls. That's the saying. You clutch your pearls. Like you clutch your pearls. Marcia, good evening to you. Yes, you have to clutch your pearls, like grab your chest and gasp. Oh, my Grace, good evening.
So this is Marriage Mentors, and we're discussing the topic ego. So feel free to connect with us, get in on the conversation. You can send us a WhatsApp message to 333-9950. That's 333-9950. And you can get in on the conversation via phone. And the numbers are 624-7729 or 625-2759. Mr. and Mrs. Mahon with you, and we're discussing ego.
Right. So, as we've been looking at ego and we're familiar with what ego looks like, this is where it flows into relationships now. Let's touch on what that would do. This is the thing, ego is the thing that causes a lot of fights in relationships, from arguments to fights, blame games, criticism, you name it, it's all there. Ego plays a big part in it. When somebody is wrong and they want to play wrong and strong, ego has a big part to play inside of that. There's so many things that have the ability to destroy the very foundation of relationships and marriages. In all of those things, the ego is said to be the one problem that kills the best of relationships. You could have a strong relationship, but a very inflated ego. And bet your bottom dollar, if we could put it that way, it's going to destroy it. It's going to play a big part in the fall of your relationship. If you're not working on your ego, know that it will either limit your communication, it will drive a wedge between you and your spouse, so many different things. The possibilities are endless. And you know what? You will always find a reason why you should do it.
Yeah.
Because ego is the best lawyer, has the best lawyer ever. And all of that happening inside of your own head. Beauty is in the eye of the ego holder. Yeah, it's the worst enemy that's always lurking in the shadows. No matter what you are doing or wherever you go, that's always going to be there, waiting to show its ugly face. So, take for instance, in a marriage, this is why Jesus said, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself for her. So it says, you're not yes, there's a measure of roles and responsibilities that God gave the man and the woman, but it wasn't for them to superimpose themselves over one and say, well, I am this and I play in this role, and without me, you is nothing. It's not.
There's always this competition.
Yeah, it's not meant, it wasn't designed by God to be that way. You both have roles that are meant to work together.
Yeah.
We would have talked about that. So therefore, if you're beginning to look at it from a point of view, well, I am the authority here. No, it's not supposed to work like that, especially when you have to say it. That slips into ego. This is why he came back and said after, submit yourselves to one another. So that it leaves that space now. Whenever your ego begins to rise up, there's always a room to take the pin and pop it. Let it deflate and come right back down to zero, so that you don't overexert, overinflate your sense of importance over the next. Remember your roles and know your role and walk in it.
Yeah.
Know your role and walk in it. This is why we told ladies last time in The Power of a Woman, don't, because you think nobody else will do it. You're not that important. That's where a lot of the times the ego of a woman comes in. Who else will do it? That's ego. When you inflate your sense of importance inside of the relationship, stick within your role and allow the man to be a man. If you take up the space of the man, who's going to occupy it after? It never signals in the relationship that there is a void if you don't leave the void for him to now grow into that space. Because maybe he never knew what being a man totally in the relationship was. And if a woman's ego in that regard says, hey, if he don't do it, I need to do it, or else everything will fall apart. Everything must fall back on me. You know, those kind, that's what ego looks like. The moment you over inflate what your sense of importance is. And even so, we're looking at the men's side and the women's side here. The man might say, well, I'm the man of this house. I wear any pants. You know how men like to do it. You want to say everything with force and be so, as this word grammar like to use, gruff. Yeah, it makes no sense doing that. When your ego begins to kick in, take that moment and pop it. Because you don't want nobody else to pop it. So it's best you pop it. Don't let your head swell. And God have to tell you, well, yeah. Yeah. So it's better to take front before front take you.
True.
And deflate. Come right back down. Settle yourself. Boil along like Baji. And begin to work again. Because ego is a problem.
Hey, blessings to those of you who just joined us. In case you're wondering, we're discussing the topic ego, and this is Marriage Mentors with Mr. and Mrs. Mahon.
All right, so we'll go into anonymity here. Someone says, if I had a low self-esteem before, but slowly learning myself, but I'm not boasting, is that ego? No, it's not ego. Ego, as we said, it's that point when you begin to say that you are better than someone else. When you begin to compare your skill set to someone else's skill set. When you see that sense of importance over someone else. Knowing what you can do is one thing. If I know I could operate a mouse really well, I could type on a keyboard really well, I know my word speed. My word speed might be, let's say, 60 words a minute. I'm kind of roughly guessing. But if not only I want nothing on me, that is ego. Not only I want nothing, once you begin to boasting is where the problem comes in. And boasting can look like different ways. You know, we're good at masking that, right? From the time, if I don't do it, who will do it? Now, it's not just women say that, men say that. If I don't do it, who will do it? Washing wares. Yes, somebody else could wash it. Somebody else could do the laundry. Somebody else could sweep the house. Somebody else could mop it. If you
Or they will say things like, better I do that. It's best I do that. Because at least I know what to do and how to do it.
Yeah.
So why you can't teach me how to do it?
Yeah, it's best I do it because all I'm going to do it the way I want it. Or the way it should be done. And you know, we mask the way I want it is really the way it should be done is really the way I want it. You want it to start mopping from this part to reach this part and not the other way around because you find it should be done this way. Move from so and go so. Don't come this way. You know, when we were small. Now, it was a mix of two things because it was a mix of common sense, but also ego. I remember while growing up, my elder sister, I wouldn't say which one of them, all of them are older than me, so I wouldn't sell out anybody. All of them older. But my elder sister said, you have to sweep the floor from this way, coming this way. But she never said why. She just this is how I want it sweep. So I'm like, you okay? I sweeping the floor gonna get clean. Nobody, it's not like I'm gonna leave the floor dirty. I remember at one point she did hit me for it. Well, that didn't turn out too well, but then yeah. But therein lies the ego because she didn't even explain, okay, well, you know, it makes sense because the breeze is blowing this way. If you sweep against the wind, you'll be defeating the purpose.
Yeah.
So sweep going this way. but it was, I don't even know what caused the whole ruckus, but at that point, it was a lack of information that she wasn't willing to, it was information that she wasn't willing to share at the time that then switched into a personality thing that this is how I want it done.
Which is one of the points here.
Right.
The desire to always do it
Your way.
Yes.
Frank Sinatra, I did it I wanted my way. Mr. Mahon Sr., good evening to you. He said that reminds me of the conflict of the body parts. Each one stressing over their importance and looking down at the anus until it decided to stop working. Yeah, no need to say anymore. Everything was messed up. Megan, good evening. Megan, good evening. Yeah,
That's why you're not supposed to just read out messages.
that's daddy for you.
Call out the man name, you know.
Yeah, right, daddy. Switch out to anonymous.
Wow. I thought we were going into that mode, but
all right, that's fine, Megan. Mickey, good evening. He said, so when Adana don't accept she's wrong, it's her ego.
listen to me.
Yo, good evening. What is your definition of someone having a fragile ego? I wouldn't say it's a fragile ego. At that point, it's a issue of low self-esteem. Ego is something that moves from confidence and knowing self-worth to a point of overinflation of what one can do or sense of importance. So you can't have a fragile ego. Ego is the other end of the spectrum. You have self-esteem in one end, from the middle to one end, just like if we were to look at pH balance, you have 0 to 7, 7 to 14. And the middle being neutral. 0 to 7, if we were to put it this way. Yeah. All right. 0, if you were to switch it around, if you were to say acid is ego, 0 to 7 is your self-esteem, right? 0 to 7 is your self-esteem.
You know, from the time you started calling numbers, you lost me one time, right? So what I'll be saying is
or your speedometer. Anything above that particular speed is ego. Anything below it, as we said, anything above 50 is ego. Anything below 50 is your self-esteem. So you can have low self-esteem, or you can move to the place where you have good self-esteem. And having a good self-esteem, meaning that, all right, I esteem myself in a way that is good and normal. An overinflated self-esteem, it's where you switch now from self-esteem to ego, and you begin to look at things from a very a vantage point that you've made up in your own head.
Yeah.
Where you begin to elevate yourself above others. Compare yourself to others. I'm better than this one. This one have nothing on me. When we begin to do that, it's toxic. Ego has no soft side.
Yeah.
Right? You can have low self-esteem, meaning that this is how a bad view of myself. You can have a good view of yourself. All that is within the safe zone. From the time you begin to overinflate yourself, your sense of importance over someone else, that's when it becomes toxic. Ego has no fragile side where I have a bad ego. A bad ego meaning a broken ego. Yes, when you pop it, you feel sore because you were going beyond the danger zone. And you now have to set yourself back in order.
Yeah.
You can have a broken ego, which is good. That is correction. But having self-esteem issues in terms of where you don't see yourself at any kind of worth, in terms of you always let people run over you, you consider yourself so introverted that you can't stand up for yourself when you're being, and when I say you're being wronged without reason, and there is no rebuttal to say, well, this is what it is. That isn't true. And this is who I am. And you go into an interview and you can say, well, I am able to do this. This is my skill set, and I'm able to accomplish this. I'm able to work with teams. I'm able to take this task and move it from point A to point B to point Z. That isn't ego. It's factual things that you're able to do, and you know your skill set. If you're overinflating it and exaggerating, yes, that is ego, and that is also lying.
Would you say, like, okay, say for example, you are helping me do something, right? But I want it a particular way. So even when you help me, when you help me, you help me and stuff, I still coming back to do it over. Would you say that's ego, or would you just say it's me being a perfectionist? Would you class that in the same category as ego?
If the person is, I wouldn't say that it's a matter of ego. If it has no understanding with it, that says to someone that you can validate as to why this, your routine of doing something might be quote unquote better. If there is no reason as to why, no plausible reason that you both can agree on, then yes, that can be qualified as egotistical action. Take, for instance, let's use the example, like when we were folding up the clothes and we were doing the linen closet, and I folded over all the towels, right?
Yeah, so he did that. He did that. And you know what I wanted to do? Deep down inside, I just wanted to take out every piece of clothing and every piece of linen and just fling it somewhere just to say, okay, well, you can go and sort it out, mix up everything. You can go and sort it out. You can
Sort it out and you fold it how
you
you want
can
to fold
fold
it.
it. No problem in that at all. I'll go and sit and eat cake and ice cream and keep you company too. But no, I'm not that wicked. No one do that.
Now, if it is, I just did it because that's my way and I wanted it done that way, then that would have been bad. But remember Evelyn saying, all right, I'm doing it over this way because while taking them out, all will end up unfolding and then we'll have a problem. Then that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's not a matter of my way because I just want it that way.
So that if there is some kind of understanding, some communication, some explanation, then you wouldn't say it's ego.
You don't want to do it just because your way is the quote unquote best way. There has to be, and this is why I say ego is something that you make up in your own head, where you overinflate your own importance.
Yeah.
And there is no communal agreement on that point of view.
It went way back there. He didn't even go to agreement and agreeance. That's way back.
If that's the case, then it's just a matter of ego. Now, principle is, yes, you state, well, this is why, and then if not, then you can agree, well, let's do it this way. Let's do it this way. But we can also have the other side of ego that could just be, if it is you were to take the petty rule and say, well, I'm going to fling everything. That's ego as well.
Yeah.
Even though it appears as though it's not
because that's ego from both sides.
Right. It's not overpowering, but it's also a strong it's also a strong sense of a victim.
Yeah.
You can play the victim role and still have ego. It's still a strong suit that says, this is very important, even though it's in a wrong position or in a quote unquote submissive position. We can still have a very strong ego in a submissive undertone.
Yeah.
And that is also problematic. So it gets back to where your motives lie and where your thoughts lie.
Shanice, good evening to you. Sherry shares, Mommy Leets. You like my name for her?
Yes, Mommy Leeds. Pauline, good evening to you. Yes, we are doing okay. Yes. Basically, ego is accompanied by arrogance. Individuals are incapable of seeing others' worth. That is true. If you are sharing an idea, in this case with the towels, if you're sharing an idea and your idea is because you're not open to seeing loopholes in your own idea, that's arrogance. That's egotistical. This is why many discussions can turn into an argument because of ego, because you think that your point is so valid, everybody else should just shut up.
Which brings us to our second point. It pushes the other person away. So then you'll end up being all by yourself.
Exactly.
And you would think that, okay, well, I'd rather be alone. No. Everybody who tell me over the years that they want to be alone and they don't want anybody in their space and stuff, up to today, you will hear them saying things like, you know, they need people, whether it's a friend, whether it's whoever, some helper, anybody.
Everybody needs
We
somebody.
all need somebody. I was the same way.
We all need
That's
somebody.
why I could say that now. I was the same way. I didn't want nobody in my space. I didn't want to be married. I didn't want to have any form of responsibilities.
Oh, you end up here, girl.
You know, you understand? So I didn't want that, but it's not that I didn't want it. It's just that I didn't understand and I didn't know how to do the thing.
A lot of the times we're driven by our egos and we adopt it as our personality.
Yeah.
I've seen so many temporary toxic things people adapt as permanent personality traits. This is why I would have shared years ago when I went to do some ministry at a church, and I said, many people say that they're morning people. I'm a morning person, I'm a night person, I'm this way, I'm that way.
I remember a joke about that. That's something else. She started asking, how can they tell me I'm a morning person? I'm not a morning person. I don't even know who I am.
And a lot of the times we adapt things to something that we've found some measure of comfort in. And we say, yes, this is my personality.
Yeah.
Let life change now. I've had to get up early in the morning and become a morning person. And other times I would have to stay up late at night. Like, I love to get up early and pray in the morning. Love to see the sunrise. But that can't happen now. I finish and work midnight by the time I get home.
By the time you blink, so the sunrise.
If I pray too long when I reach home, the sun will meet me. So those are things you just have to adapt with life.
And this is what I'm saying. Before, I didn't understand anything.
Yeah.
And it's just because we don't understand, because we don't know, we tend to go back into the comfort zone and say, okay, I am not this kind of person, or I am this person. Hence the reason I am not going to do this and I'm not going to do that. But when you check yourself a few months later, you end up being the total opposite because life happened.
That's if you decide to, because I've seen people fight against life.
But life always winning. That's
the thing. Who's behind life? God is behind life. And if we could only see God's perspective, he said, essentially, ego is your most hardened traits.
Yeah.
If we're honest enough, it's the most hardened side of you. Whenever we have something that we think is our ego, or that we feel we so confident in that we overexert ourselves and superimpose our thoughts and trends and ways on other people. One of the easiest things for me to do is resign myself to saying, all right, you do what you have to do. You know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I always say that. Yeah, they know what they're doing. Because I would look on. I'm not going to overexert myself to try to seem very important. I've learned that lesson long time. Long time. So for me, that may not be my ego. So and that's because I've seen where that could be the two gorillas fighting over the television kind of thing, where you end up in a state of argument because you're trying to prove a point to someone who does not necessarily want to take your point.
Yeah.
Why try to fight that?
Yeah.
So you resign
It's
yourself.
like you forcing your opinion.
And that's what ego is. It's a force of opinion. It's that force of opinion. You don't want to do that. What's the next point?
It kills happiness and love, whether it's in yourself, whether it's in relationships. As I said before, with your family, whether it is your marriage, whether it is your co-workers, it destroys your happiness. It destroys the joy, destroys the love that's supposed to be inside of you. But because of that thing called ego, yeah, there's none of that. And who is responsible for that?
You are.
Exactly.
Because it's the stubborn side of us. We never realize when the relationship changes.
That's the third point. It makes you lose touch with reality.
Right. Sorry for jumping the gun with what
you always do that. You always do that. I'm accustomed to it.
I'm walking material.
So then all these hours I just be researching stuff while he's sleeping. You see, there's no need for me to do it. I will come here with my hands swinging next time and be so free. So what are we talking about?
Whatever you think we could talk about, Mr. Mahon. So a lot of the times we never know when the relationship shifts into cold because we're so bent on seeing our right point that a lot of the times is wrong.
Yeah.
And we put those things as more important. Take for instance, let's say your wife, and I'm just using an example. Husband and wife, the wife took the car and she gets into a little fender bender, right? Just a little graze on the car. A little graze on the car. And he's upset because this car is
I do that, yeah.
No.
Just a disclaimer.
I probably hit the car more than you.
Oh, God. I never see you hit that car. Never. So you park it up and people hit it.
So in that regard, because the car is his pride and joy, and she grazed the car or something like that, she didn't estimate it properly. Just a little rub and it could buff off. Something as simple as that. And because of it, how he treats her is now cold and stuff like that. He so upset, he didn't even want to eat. And because it's continuing so long, she now begins to pull back because she's trying to keep being her normal, usual wifely self.
Yeah.
And he's so cold because he's upset about this little stupid thing on the car. Okay, go fix it. It done happen already. You can't turn back the hands are tied.
No, you see, she can't say that.
No, she can't say that.
Because then it's going to sound a certain way.
He has to be mature enough. No, but the fact is that you can't change it.
No.
Anytime an accident happens, you have to fix it.
You just have to, yeah.
Fix it or leave the car so.
Sell it as is.
If it's undrivable, either you sell it as is or something like that. But at the end of the day, what's more important? The car that could buff out or your relationship that is you're putting on the rocks?
And this is where priorities come in.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And this is where ego can come in.
Mhm.
You're thinking, well, this, and she not seeing that this, I just spend so much money, and this is what the car payment is, and blah, 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 and you're bumping up your gum, and you're going from here to Timbuktu with all the complaints. At the end of the day, what's more important? You're literally overexerting yourself and your point of view. Yeah, it's a valid complaint that the car got a little thing, or maybe it's a big thing, but you cannot, that's a material thing. Let's look at it just by matter of priority.
Yeah.
What's more important, relationship or the car?
Relationship.
So we when we think about it, we never see these are the ways that ego will influence an argument or influence a trend of thought or a behavior. A lot of the time it comes up and toxifies a relationship, and we never really see it for what it is. And he might go and share it with other people. That, you know, that girl bunks my car. I doing this, I doing that. I just make sure this happen and that happen. I just wash my thing. I take care of my things. And she does the bunksing it up. And that's the argument that he has. And the more he continues, he's cementing himself in that stubborn trend of thought. And while all of that is happening, she is now growing distant from him because he's turned her back on her. And you're not seeing the distance, but you're focusing on this thing. And we never see how ego damages.
Yeah.
Creates that distance.
It creates unrealistic expectations. It does.
Yes.
It does. It does. For instance, when a relationship as sensitive and delicate as a marriage, when it gets stained with ego, there are times when one person starts expecting too much from the other. They create these unrealistic expectations, which they feel that they truly deserve. Think of it as a kind of entitlement that makes one assume that it's theirs and they have completely earned it. So see, it's a mind thing, and it fools you. It fools us.
Take, for instance, husband and wife again. He gets a promotion to some big post in the company that he is working for. And at work, he has all of these people to do all his stuff.
Yeah.
But what changed at home? You got a promotion at home? You got a promotion at home? No, it didn't change. But, okay, even if his attitude changes to now kind of treat people with, well, I'm this and I'm that, and I got a parking spot, so you can't park there.
That's actually the other point. Sense of superiority and entitlement.
Right. So it creates now where you begin to now extrapolate that to home, and you have to talk to your wife for this kind of thing. You need to call me this. I have some people whose wives call them by their church titles. Yeah. I'll say it again, as I said it before, stop that nonsense. Don't do it. Take off your jacket and tie and go home. When you go home, you're just her husband. You're just his wife.
I'm not saying boo. All I'm doing is batting my eyelids, my eyelashes.
No, those are things you have to stop. You have to stop. Come back down to normal, people.
Yeah.
You're not the executive when you get home. Stop trying to be an executive at home. This is where your marriage is important.
Yeah.
And even though while at work, you have the position of an executive, it doesn't mean that executive don't mean distant.
Yeah.
Form follows function, and we talked about that before. It doesn't mean you now become impersonable. A lot of the times we've seen this in churches where you have an executive pastor. Nobody can meet with him. You have other lay pastors who meet with the people because this executive can't meet with plebs. No, those are things that actually happen. And it's sad to say that they venture into the structures of the church that we know so well today, which is rather unfortunate and anti-Christ. Jesus met with people all the time. He was the biggest apostle of all time. His grace filled the whole universe. None of us never even came close to what he is, but we feel we're it. You're not that important.
Anyway.
You're not that important. So come off the high horse and be a normal person. Yes, you get some more money, have more responsibilities. Don't let it screw up your personality and your relationships.
Yeah.
Nita Needs, good evening to you. Glad to have you with us. All right. My sister from Pinal, good evening to you. She said she have closed the fold. Did I miss anything? All right. She said, for me, letting people in my space is like they always want something and not doing or giving anything in return. Even if years pass, I can't depend on anyone, and people talking down at you that you're not what they really wanted. And what happened to me is that I bent the driver door, paid for it, and after 2008, I still hear that I can't drive for. Yeah.
No.
Well, people will be people. Even that sense of always throwing stuff back in people's faces is also ego. Some people build their sense of ego. They build their ego by pushing down others, by belittling others, degrading others. And a lot of the times it gets so normal that they're unaware that they're doing it because they've been doing it for a very long time. And that's a really large toxic flow that you always want to kind of stay away from. If you talk to the person and they're just not stopping, distance yourself. So talk to them first, because sometimes people are unaware. They've gotten so accustomed, or they probably grew up in an environment where that was the norm, where belittling someone else was just the order of the day. And
the funny thing about that is, if you were to give them that in return,
they wouldn't like it.
They can't take it. They can't take it.
I did that to someone and became very sour. I did that to someone and became, because the person did it to me several times. I said, let's try doing that. Not just for doing its sake, I said at that point, well, this is probably how, because I'm very careful not to do those things. The person would normally say all sorts of stuff and bring back up everything that I would have done. I'm like, okay, you now meet people and there's a time you would just bring that up randomly. It wasn't even part of the conversation. I remember when Lynden. I'm like, you're just a remember when kind of person. All right, okay. So I just said, in the middle of us talking and laughing, she said it. She did the same thing again. Now meeting new people again. And I said, Jill, you can't anchor us, eh? And I laughed. We all laughed. But it sank deep within her. And she went to our boss and stuff like that. And he came back to me. Well, of course, I gave him some words of encouragement. I said, you came to me with that foolishness. Go and tell the person, change their ways. We're not doing pity party things here. When people could give something and they can't take it back, a lot of the times they're unaware that there's something wrong that they're doing. Because he said to me, we'll go and apologize. I said, what am I apologizing for? For what she's accustomed doing to me? I said, if she can do that, if she's big enough to go and do that, she had the urge to come and tell you that, hey, I did this to her, then she could have come to me. She never did. She went to you. I said, so go back and tell her, come to me and let's thrash out the issue. But yes, a lot of the times persons with the ego problems
Mm-hmm.
tend to not be able to take what they give. And this is why I'm encouraging, okay, if it is you can sit with the person and talk with them, do that. Please do. And if that is they're not intent on doing anything about it positively, then yeah, sometimes you have to distance yourself from the individual. Yeah. Just distance yourself. At that point, just distance yourself. All right, we have a voice note here. Let's get that voice note.
Good night, Lynden and Adana. Adana was listening to you, I just feel that way. I don't know, but like it wearing off a little bit. I'm not sure. I ain't sure if it's wearing off a little bit. You understand? I like my space, especially on my bed. So I tell myself, I say, but girl, if you get married again,
How you gonna make out?
you can't say you want your space. You understand? But I always just tell myself, I get married again, I have to have an extra bed. I don't know why, because I don't know, I love my space. But it's a good topic. I'm listening.
Want to have your cake and eat it too? No. You have to share the cake.
You know,
And in this case, the bed.
the example of the vehicle
Mhm.
you would have used a while ago
Yeah.
brought us to this next point. When you have that issue of ego, you begin to express not that point. No, not that point
Not
yet.
that point.
I'm not ready for that yet. Yeah. But when you you're dealing with that issue of ego, you tend to play the victim. That's what it was. Which is exactly what it is you would have said in the example with the husband and the wife. And I think someone would have mentioned something like that just now. But in this case, he would have been criticizing her, which is one of the other points. There's constant criticism.
Yeah.
And even with these points, I didn't consider all of that to fall
Under
ego because it's things that happens. So should I say naturally? It just happens, right? It just happens. And we tend to overlook those things. But coming back to it and seeing it being highlighted so many times is like, I really didn't look at, criticizing people is an ego or you're being jealous, you're expressing some form of jealousy. It has to do with ego, or playing the victim is ego. And I'm like,
no,
I didn't know.
Many a times we can say, well, I have low self-esteem, and because we see ourselves as a victim, everybody always want to fight me down, and that might not be the case. It can be ego masquerading itself as low self-esteem. Low self-esteem is not an ego problem. It's not an ego problem. It's just your view of yourself. You view yourself with no worth. That is what self-esteem is. Where you don't esteem or you don't respect yourself. No self-respect. Because if someone is highly esteemed, they're highly respected. Because you've got to be able to use the synonyms interchangeably. If someone is highly esteemed, they're highly respected. If someone is lowly esteemed, they're lowly respected.
Yeah.
So you have to look at, when you say esteem, look at yourself with respect. If you respect yourself in this regard and you don't respect yourself in that regard, it talks about your sense of esteem, where you overesteem yourself and nobody can guarantee or verify that then becomes ego.
Yeah.
Nobody shares that point of view with you. And that you did not instigate, meaning that you didn't go and say, well, I am this and I am that. No, if nobody can validate that and it's not a common sense of knowledge, then it falls within the category of ego, where you now have to overexert your sense of importance.
One of the other points, see, you would have used an example of it just now again. You find it difficult to admit and apologize.
To admit that you're wrong.
Even when you're wrong. Even when you're wrong. It's like, is he seeing my notes?
And that's the problem. The moment you are so caught up inside of your own point of view, even when you are wrong, says it is a clear, surefire signal that it is an egotistical problem.
Yeah.
That is very toxic. Anytime you go within, now I've heard this statement, your ego is so big that I get attracted to scratch your ego. You know, it's time to stroke your ego. Yeah, he just stroking his ego. Stroking your ego is if I could put it this way, in a very raw sense, it's like masturbation. Because you're pleasuring yourself, if we could put it that way. Yeah, I know that. Stroking your own ego.
I just had to look at the camera.
It's different. It's different from commendation and praises. It's pleasuring yourself. The moment you do that, it falls within that category.
I totally understand your point. It's just that I'm trying to figure out is there any other example that he could have used?
And I wanted to use such a strong example for us to see how bad
because it's marriage mentors and it's after 9.
Yeah, it's after it's sky after dark.
Hey, as he said, that is just about 13 minutes past the hour of 10 o'clock. We're just over halfway through Marriage Mentors, and this evening we're discussing ego. In a short, we're going to be looking at finding ways to deal with that issue so that we would win the battle, right? Because, you know, according to what you said a few days ago, saying that you're battling with something is if the thing is happening, but you are fighting back.
Yeah, putting up a fight.
If it is you're not doing that, then you're not battling, right? And this is what it is here. If it is, you realize, because we are giving out all these tips, not tips, all these signs of ego. If it is you were not aware of it from before, because a lot of things I wasn't aware of in terms of certain things falling under ego, right? If it is you are now becoming aware of, okay, I think I have this issue. I think I have that issue. Yeah, that's my ego, you know, this kind of way. And this is probably why it is I'm having this issue in my marriage, or this is probably why it is my child and I are very distant, or sibling, or somebody, or probably some past friend, high school friend, or something like that. It goes so far when you look at it, but it all comes back to us searching ourselves, looking at the issue. So from the moment you detect, okay, there is an issue, you don't know how to deal with it. This is why we have marriage mentors. We may not have all the answers in the world, but we try our best to bring as much information to you as possible. As it helps us, we pray that it helps you. Yeah, so if you just joined us, this is what we're discussing this evening on Marriage Mentors, ego. And in a short, we're going to look at how to deal with the issue. Just have a few points, again, for ways of detecting that
Mhm.
that problem. The next one is
Before you continue, Nerison is asking a very interesting question here. How is pride and ego connected? Um, where we had to establish the boundaries between what is self-esteem and what is ego, it's the same thing with dignity and pride.
Yeah.
A lot of the times we use pride across the board, but dignity is the word because the English language tends to be very muddied. But we've got to define those things clearer so that we have a sense of understanding when it comes to defining particular things.
Yeah.
If we were to go biblical, the Bible never gave a sense of, as we use a sense of pride when it comes to dignity and self-worth. It never used the word pride. When we hear pride comes before fall.
Yeah.
He became too proud. Those kinds of things. Proud meaning this was a danger zone. The Bible always signaled pride and being synonymous with danger. So when we look at pride and we look at ego, we were able to establish that there are two very extreme sense of self, where you get swell-headed, and a lot of the times, ego and pride, they collapse, go down the hill together. They always go off the cliff together. So to answer your question, they are twins or a married couple, if we could put it that way.
Yeah. The next point is you may have narcissistic tendencies.
Yeah.
Right? In other words,
This is essentially what that is.
Yes. That's what that is. Right? And in case you're unsure of what it really means, it's extreme self-involvement to the degree that it makes a person ignore the needs of those around them.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is what we would have touched on earlier on with drawing examples and stuff like that.
There's no boundary to where ego will go. So same with pride. It's just like where money is involved. This is why the Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. If money is a tool and you understand that money is a tool, you don't have a strange, funny relationship with money. But if you love money, that's a different ball game. So you then begin to do anything, anywhere, anyhow for money, because you love money. You love what money. Not that you know what money can do and you wield it responsibly. It's like, all right, because I have these particular body parts, I will have sex. It's like that. You want to ensure that you do it properly. So this is why the love of money is the root of all evil. So not because you have the ability to do something, you do it. That's a difference between responsibility and the core definition of what power is. Power is not because you have it, you wield it. You know when to wield it and how to do it correctly.
The next point is having difficulty compromising. So let's say, for example, you and a friend team up to do something and you all have different ways of doing it and you can't meet the person in the middle. Or, for instance, your spouse. Yeah, you all have something that you're dealing with, something that you're doing, but you just can't bring yourself to compromising. You can't just bring yourself to saying, okay, let me meet you. Let me meet you where you are. Let me just throw off this side of me and be like, okay, you know what? Probably next time I'll do it like this. Or probably, something I like.
Yeah.
I might be able to use it another time. But when we have an issue with our ego, that's what happens. Certain things. And this is why we said before, it pushes the people around us. It pushes them away, further and further away from us. And we don't want that. We don't want that. We don't need that. in our lives. That's too much of stress.
Very much so. We have a call on the line. Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening.
Hi, Nita Neat.
Yeah, I wanna ask a question concerning ego. Does it have to do with men alone, or is it a general something?
No, it's a general thing. Anyone can have an ego, a child and all.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Once there is that attitude that asserts that personal self-importance over everything else and everybody else,
Mhm.
that's classified as ego.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
That's where it steps into the danger zone. You know, you can have self-esteem, bad self-esteem, okay self-esteem, and a good self-esteem. You know, and a good sense of self-respect in terms of you, just as you would respect someone for what they are they're capable in their field of work, they're respected. It's the same way you do that for yourself. You know, okay, well, like I was telling Versi today, I know what I can do. I'm not a DJ. I'm not a disc jockey. I know what my strengths are. Um, I know what facets of radio I'm capable in. I'm not going to go and say, well, nobody can touch me. I better than all the inside here. That is where ego comes in. If I'm confident, I know what my skill is, and I'm not going to be boasting about, well, I can do this. There's no need for that. When it need arise and my skill set is required, I go do what I have to do, and life goes on. There is no need for me to go and announce, well, I am this and I
Yeah.
could do that. That's ego.
You're not playing this macho.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's where ego flares up. So we're actually seeing where the boundaries of ego sets itself up. Yeah.
And the self-esteem applies there also.
Self-esteem really is within the boundaries of respecting yourself in terms of, because you can have no respect for yourself for even to the point where you either allow yourself to be a pushover and all you do is have a pity party.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
That is no self-respect. Now, it can masquerade itself, low self-esteem can be masqueraded in the form of ego. When I say, or vice versa, ego can masquerade itself in the form of a pity party when you play the victim.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you're playing the victim, because whether you want it, because again, you want the attention, you want that sense of importance. So you play the victim role so that you awaken the softer side of people to give you that preference. So it's that kind of very subtle serpentine side of it, if you can put it that way.
Gotcha. So again, the self-esteem is the pushover, and you just
Well, low self-esteem. If you don't have a good view of yourself, when people will do you anything,
and get in a pity party.
Mm-hmm.
yes, you will end up getting into a pity party, or you just don't think you can accomplish any of the things that you think you should do. You might have a skill, but you don't know how well to use it. A lot of different things might play into low self-esteem that can actually fix it to make it a good self-esteem.
Okay, until you reach
the point where you now lord it over other people.
Wall.
Yeah.
That you are able to tell yourself, okay, time to push back.
Yeah.
Right. Got you. Okay, thank you.
You're most welcome. All right. Bye-bye. Excellent question. Excellent question. Because we have to know the boundaries. Because a lot of the time, because I grew up thinking, well, my self-esteem, it was hard to balance self-esteem and not step across into pride. Because I remember when I first started leading worship, that was one of the things that was always being said.
Yeah.
You're getting swell-headed, you're getting swell-headed. And I'm like, just like you, I didn't want to be swell-headed. Oh, wow. Now, on the inside, from the time in the early, I think I remember the first couple of times, where people fall down and cry, and you think, "Ooh, that's me, boy. I could do that." That's where it begins to awaken. And if you're not dealing with it at its earlier stages, it can become very problematic when you think it's all you, until the Holy Spirit pops your bubble and moves out. Let's take another call. Hello, good evening.
Hi, a blessed evening to you, my darling.
I see you fall in. Oh. Oh my goodness, my heart beating.
You're real miserable, no. Listen to me. You have some real licks to get to know. You like you have to get a double.
I'll take my licks.
You know, listen to the topic you all have here, right? And I often used to sit down and think about that. Would you see, like when you were saying that how, you know, you had this person, you know, the attitude they give out, but when they get a taste of the medicine, you know, you go and you complain, right? But, you know, it is, so see, there's 3-letter word, which is ego, you understand? As if it has more weight, right? In the sense that we will puff up our chest instead of humbling ourselves, you know, to solve a problem or deal with a situation, and then it go out of hand. Because if you think about the letter E, you know, for ego, if you take out the E and you just let go, you understand? But I think the problem some of us have is let go. You know, let the go, the G-O.
Yes.
You understand? Take the E, let go. That is the problem they have. Because I have come across people, and as I say, I had one time, okay, if you read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, that's no problem, right? But then I ask a simple question in the sense that if a storm comes in, what will you do? And you telling me I run in and get my family and I head into the grocery. The other one say the same thing. And these are people who be up there and they preaching and things. So I said to them, if I know a storm coming, the first thing I will do is pray about it. You know? Now, I stick to what I'm saying. I'll pray about it. And then the argument coming in like, so you're praying and when you're done, it might not have no food inside of your house and all these sort of things. So I'm like, no, because the storm could catch you also in the grocery where you're going, right? But, you know, it just goes to see how sometimes when people in a certain, I don't know if I want to say background or a certain level, you know, according to you, they tend to look down on other people and they will feel, well, listen, I'm up here. You can't reach where I is up here. By the time you look to reach that level, I don't go on further up. You know, so they beat the chest like King Kong, you know, and they tell themselves, well, here what's going on. Then they don't want to humble themselves to come down to your standard and your level to deal with a situation. So they rather take the word ego and destroy a whole relationship, whether it's family or just a friend or a co-worker, whoever it is, you know. And then down the road, I wonder if they just look back and say, you know, something, I could have dealt with this differently. You know? I didn't have to let this my ego get to me that, you know, after not speaking to this person now, or we pass each other straight and, you know. So I like this topic you all have, but I think this topic has to go back to next
next one.
Because as I say, it's a 3-letter word, but it's carrying real weight.
It's a big thing,
Yes, it's carrying real weight because that word ego can destroy relationships, in marriage, in homes, in family.
Countries, that's one of the reasons why we have wars these days.
You see? Yes, because Putin bunked his chest and he said,
Mine compare, don't call it in.
What you do? Send the plane for me?
Yeah, you never know. You never let me watch myself.
Hey, Alex, spoke the name of Jesus. Understand? He wouldn't even cross the sea. I serve a very big God, you know.
Yes, we do.
he tell us to come bold. Or just this is my dad tell us, like, come bold before him. So he has not given us a spirit of fear. You know what I mean? We have to let the devil know, and also to those outside there who feel they have power to destroy the earth. They can never destroy the earth. Only God can.
Yeah.
You understand? So people, don't be afraid. They don't have no nuclear or nothing to destroy this. God will destroy it for himself. Back to the topic. So I'm saying it's a very good topic.
Yes.
And I think tonight alone wouldn't just solve it. We listen to hear what ideas you all have, right? But I think you all will have to go into our next section with it and find some more, stuff for us.
Yes.
So we can see how we can fix relationships.
Yes, we do need to do that.
Because when I come to me, go and look for you, darling.
Look thing here.
I'm not doing like my girl, My girl said she's studying, she could share his space. I share my space. I don't understand that. I don't understand. I share in my space. Isn't it? I don't see the pillow woman of nobody,
Exactly.
Strawberry? You both tell me that happens. Strawberry, I don't need you to know. Listen, if I come up at the bed, I don't understand. The pillow woman, yeah?
No.
Aye, what I talking.
Well, sometimes it does, eh?
Pillow don't hug back nobody.
Yeah.
Pillow don't hug back nobody.
I that what I love you, I don't understand that. You have to keep pillow her hand. If she back on the scratch, she goes, the pillow scratch for back.
Yeah, scratch my back.
So, Barry, you too.
I must try it and see if it
Say your pillow do that, I throw it away.
Push down the step.
Yeah. Push it down the step, I flinging it in the garbage truck.
Oh, Barry.
Send him in the dump.
You can't win that one.
You understand?
Don't put me in no back and I love you much.
Love you too.
All right, it's time for marriage devotional.
Yes, it is. And this evening, it's you can never be happily married to another until you get a divorce from yourself.
I like that.
I'll say that again. You can never be happily married to another until you get a divorce from yourself. Successful marriage demands a certain death to self. Now, the author said, from the moment, and this is Mike Mason, from the moment I met my wife, he writes in The Mystery of Marriage, I sensed that a process of interior disintegration was beginning to work in me systematically. In other words, of course, I was being rejuvenated, tremendously built up.
Yeah.
But a 30-year-old man is like a densely populated city. Nothing new can be built in its heart without something else being torn down.
Yeah.
So I began to be demolished. There were many times when I felt quite seriously that everything my life had stood for was being challenged. And a lot of us would have been there at some point. Or that somehow I had been tricked into selling my very soul for the sake of a woman's love. There was a lot at stake as the wedding day approached. This is the same author speaking. In fact, there was everything at stake. So not just little things, everything was at stake.
Yeah.
And this is just before his wedding day. Never before had I felt that so much was riding upon one single decision. Later, I would discover that is one of the chief characteristics of love. It asks for everything, not just a little bit or a lot, but everything. In marriage, the breaking that is done by the very heel of love itself. It is not physical pain or natural disaster or the terrible evil world out there that is to be blamed, but rather it is love, love itself that breaks us. Love itself that breaks us. And once again, you can never be happily married to another until you get a divorce from yourself. Successful marriage demands a certain death to self. And Galatians 5, verses 24 and 25 reminds us that they are Christ's and that they are Christ's have crucified the flesh, and they that are Christ have crucified the flesh with the affections and lust. If we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. That reminds me of what we would have shared on some months ago during Saturday morning wake up and shake up, walking in step
with the Spirit.
With the Spirit. Yeah, so remember that, Galatians 5, 24 and 25, and they that are Christ's have crucified the flesh with the affections and lusts. If we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. Remember, you can never be happily married to another until you get a divorce from
yourself.
So break all those bad habits. Yeah.
Keisha's asking a question. She said she had to step away for a while. She's not sure if we addressed it. She said, in addition to everything you said, which I agree with, I also heard once a local sermon about the need to support the male ego in marriage in a healthy way. Well, we didn't touch on it directly, but I'm glad that you raised the point. We literally discussing how unhealthy ego is, whether male or female side, because both male and female have egos. An ego is a personality trait or a stubborn trait. It's just a trait of stubbornness where we exert or exalt ourselves above the other. And if we promote that in marriage, we won't achieve what God wanted in the first place.
True.
Right? And if it is, we're telling women to support support the male ego, we are literally saying support the man's stubbornness and not necessarily build according to what Scripture says. Scripture tells us, it never said, men, exert yourself over your wives. It never said that. And that is what ego does. If we establish that fact. It never stated anywhere, men, exert or exalt yourself over your wife.
Yeah.
It is actually how Christ described the position or the role of a husband was one of servanthood. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Christ came, he died, he served. Right? Does that look like an ego? No, it doesn't. It's far from it.
Yeah.
So where we could see that a man it's healthy for him to have an ego. No, you're not supposed to be scratching a man's ego. He shouldn't be having it in the first place. His position in connection to his wife is one of service. It's not one of lording over. And this is why women will have a problem with submission and servitude. When you have a lord over her and him exalting himself above his wife, that is problematic. It will always be problematic. The moment we take those shapes and try to import them into Christianity, if I could use that word very loosely. All right, let me put it this way. We take the shapes of the world and import them into the kingdom of God. We corrupt that which is God. So therefore, let's do away with the world and all of its habits, ego along with it, because there is nothing good to come out of an ego. When you look at the definition of what ego is, it exalts itself above everybody else. It's an inflation of self-importance, right? it overexerts and exerts the imperative of self. There is no servitude inside of ego. There is no a sense of true love and giving up one's own preferences for another, the preference of another over yourself. There is nothing like that inside of ego. So if a husband says, well, I am the king of my home and my wife have to serve me, and because I am the lord of my territory, you know, people just use all these nice fancy terms to give themselves, to show up their ego. Anytime that happens, it literally says he is not walking in the way of Christ.
Yeah.
Christ served. And look at what he still does for the church. He is serving the church. Most of all, now, up till now, after he died and he ascended, he's now seated at the right hand of the Father doing what? Serving. He is interceding on our behalf. He is constantly praying for his wife, his bride, the church. How many men do that? And how often are you doing it? How much are you giving yourself to serving and empowering your wife? That's what it looks like. So we can't say that we are telling women, subject yourself to serving and supporting the ego of your husband. That is not healthy. The concept of what an ego is very satanic at its root. So thereby, we could safely say that we should be ridding ourselves of every form of ego because it, some way or form or fashion, exalts itself above the other.
Yeah.
You're not that important. The scripture says that. You're not that important. So therefore, let's in every way possible, I would encourage that persons don't teach that. It's not biblical doctrine. It's not. It's what the position of a husband is, one of service. He's the chief servant.
Yeah.
He leads by serving in front. He sets the example for service for everybody else to follow. He's the one that sets the tone for love and gentleness and compassion and raising children. No, it's not he's supposed to be gruff. And a lot of the times we say, yes, men are the hunters and they are the strong ones. This is a term I learned years ago from a leading, and I would say a leading lady because she's a first lady. She said, men have to know, just like God, how to put the steel hand in the velvet glove. That's how she put it. That firm side, but a soft touch. And if we're not doing that, we'll bruise everybody and break everything. We'll be that bull in the China store.
Yeah.
Breaking up and mashing up everything, nothing getting fixed and healed. We're just doing more destruction than anything else. So therefore, ego should not be something that we're supporting when we're moving towards Christ-likeness. It's antichrist. We have another call. Hello, good evening.
Hi, evening again. Yeah, Lynden, I was listening to you there, and you are so correct in everything that you said. But you know, as the saying goes again, the wife as the divine help, and the man have to come with divine purpose. But you know, something about women. I mean, God made us, yes, but something about us that is more than how a man would look at women or look at his wife. It comes like she has to do all the work. She has to pray the family through.
Well, you know how I feel about that. You know how I feel about that. Scripture never taught us that. I always say all the work is his own.
No.
I always say that. All the work is his own.
But Does he put himself in place to be doing exactly what he has been made to do, what God put him to do?
The wife came and met him working.
Yeah.
He took a break from his work because God put him to sleep. God said, here's what. Hold on. Take a break from the work. That's because I see you working hard. She was working. The work was his. The command to work was not given to the woman.
But these some, I wouldn't say all. Some of these fragile men now.
Bunch of wussies.
Oh my God. Yes, Father. Oh gosh. And not positioning themselves and want to be Lord over all. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't even want to accept the help, you know, from the woman as what she's supposed to be doing in order to help him or to build with him. Because remember, both parties, we come together to build.
That's right.
Right? You're going silent.
No, I'm agreeing.
Okay, right. Nice. Good. Right. But these days, you find that is not happening. That is not happening. And the women now have to, you know, because you want to, your marriage, you want peace in your marriage, you have to tolerate so many different things and cry out to God and pray your marriage through and all them kind of thing, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah, because that is very, very, I mean, we built, you know, to take certain things, to withstand certain things once you're in alignment with God.
Yeah.
Right? Once you are in alignment with God and know how to handle certain things, when to talk, when not to talk, when not to get him angry, know when to approach, no, you know this kind of thing. A lot of work to be done on our behalf.
Yeah.
When to discuss, you have to size up certain situations. When to discuss, when not to discuss, when to. You understand what I'm saying? So it's a lot of work.
And that's too because the men haven't taken the time to hear from the Lord what is their responsibility.
Exactly. And there's some, like a man said to his wife, what? God give man dominion over everything. So she said, well, I am not a thing. You know, this kind of way, this kind of behavior, right? When they should be seeking God, right? On behalf of the family, on behalf of the marriage, be the high priest in your home.
If they were being the high, you see that thought of just being a high priest in your home will lead to greater understanding of what the role of a man is.
Exactly.
If you first can carry your family in prayer before the Lord, if you could stand before God and represent your family, if you're doing that correctly,
yes,
it will shape so many other things.
Exactly. So that you would have now that encounter with God, and it will elevate you to other dimensions. You understand what I'm saying? And that everything should run the way it should.
Yeah.
Right? But you find these days that is not happening at all. Yeah, so that's my contribution.
I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Yes, okay.
Very, very interesting. And wow, we've come so far as a world, eh? So far. Keisha's saying the sermon shared with me. All right. She said the same one with the supporting a man's ego
Yeah.
in a quote unquote healthy way. Um, all right. She's making a point here. The pastor first berated women for speaking ill of men's ego, then went on to explain that we can't expect a man to be a leader if he is constantly beaten down. Loosely paraphrased. The concept was fair. However, when men's ego is berated, it's done so from the perspective of conceit and pride, not from the concept of regular self-esteem. And I'm not sure one of the things we covered too was the separation between what self-esteem is and what ego is. If you were to look at a speedometer, a pressure gauge, and that pressure gauge goes from 0 psi to 100 psi, 50 being that crossing point between 0 and 50 is self-esteem. 50 and 100 is ego. And anything above 50, you tend to have on your if you have a car, you have economy and then something else and then power. Yes. Anything above 50 is in red. That's when you begin to switch into power mode. So therefore, self-esteem is that part of yourself where we could switch out the word esteem and put respect.
Yeah.
And respect meaning a sense of regard, a sense of knowledge, a sense of confidence in oneself and ability, a sense of knowledge of worth. Right? If you don't have a sense of worth, you will never look at yourself in any good way whatsoever.
Yeah.
If God tells you, I want you to pray for this person, you will never have the confidence to pick up yourself and obey because you'll be saying, I can't do that like Moses. I am not good of speech. I just stammer God and I don't have the confidence to pray in front of people. All of those things we tell ourselves, and that's bad self-esteem. That is 0, that is 1, 2, that kind of thing. It's low self-esteem. You don't have any confidence, no sense of respect, no sense of esteem. Because when you esteem someone, you respect them. So when you look at it from that point of respect, that sense of respect or knowledge of worth that you carry, you won't know if you don't know that you're carrying diamonds on you.
Yeah.
You'll go anywhere, be anywhere, and you wouldn't know. You just would not know, and you will act that way because you don't know.
Yeah.
But if you know that, hey, I'm carrying diamonds, and this is of great value, I won't go everywhere.
Yeah.
I will be careful of my surroundings, that kind of thing. You will have a different sense of awareness of who you are, where you are, and how you conduct life around you. Not so? It's the same way. When you move from self-esteem over into ego, that is where you begin to say, oh, I'm carrying diamonds, and you begin to announce it. You all are plebs, you all are carrying dirt. That kind of, if we were to put it like that. You now move from the place of knowing, and you don't need to announce it. Self-esteem and self-respect never has to announce itself. Ego does that. I am this, and don't you know who? Always remember that. While managing the same frequency under another name, I remember a pastor walked in. He wanted to do ministry and stuff like that, and he had to record the segment. I can't remember his name. I don't even know if he's alive still. And I said, hi, how are you doing? I went and I introduced myself because that's practice.
Yeah.
He said, you don't know who I am? I'm like, no. Who are you? That's why I answered. Who are you? He said, you should know. You should know who I am. I said, no, I don't know who you are. I said, the right thing to do is, I just told you, Hi, I am so. I'm Lynden Mahon. Introduce yourself. And then another time I had it out with another pastor. He decided to put his handle on everything. And I was writing the receipt. I said, what's your name? He said, my name is Prophet so. I said, let me see your ID card. I said, I don't see Prophet here. I said, I asked for your name. I said, that's not your name. Your name is so. It's not Prophet. Yes, his name. So, we just take it too far. That is where ego steps in. You go to a government office, you don't go and say, well, I am so. Well, take your so and go so. And I'm not using that to be facetious or to sound obscene. It is just the fact that we take things that aren't meant to be that way. Jesus never went around saying, well, I am the embodiment of the fivefold ministry with his hands on his hip and his chest up in the air like Superman. No, he never went around doing that. Paul never did that. He wrote in letters describing, the only time he said it is when they challenged him. And when they thought, well, why do you speak with this authority? He never went around with saying, well, I am this and I am that. No, he said, by the grace of God, I am this.
Yeah.
He never went and say, well, I am Apostle Paul. No, he never called himself that. My name is Paul, an apostle of the Lord Jesus Christ. But again, so many things fall into ego, and then, many people take offense when we speak this way because they too don't understand when ego comes in, and they are also carriers of the same ego that they are criticizing us of speaking about. But then again, be that as it may, self-esteem is one thing, ego is another. Ego can be representative of that which exalts itself over others.
Yeah.
If you have a title, it's more for function and responsibility. It's not for you to throw back in somebody's face. Well, I'm a bishop, or I am a this, I am a, my name, don't call me though. You feel you're going up, you rank up in the hierarchy, or you move up in the organization. Don't call you this. Some people feel now that you call them pastor is a disrespect because that's a lower grade and I upgrade. All of those isms and schisms you find. And you see how this can hit everywhere. It's not just in marriage. It hits every single part of the planet. Even in the realm of the spirit, it hits. So we see how dark and satanic and how evil at its root ego can be. This is what caused Satan to be thrown out of heaven in the first place, because he feel he was it.
So whoever would have asked you the question and you just answered it there, whoever you are, or let's touch a nerve for probably 10, because we went straight up to 11 o'clock now. That's it for marriage mentors.
well, I think Strawberry Pie did say we have to do a part 2. Now we see how important it is. We see how, no, don't feel bad. We see how important it is to work on ridding ourselves, shedding our ego. Self-confidence, you never have to prove yourself to someone.
That's true.
The only time Jesus did any proving was that God be glorified. We looked at that with Lazarus.
Yeah.
Lazarus had to die, and he told the disciples, he had to die. Let's go wake up. Is he asleep? So why are we going and wake him up? He had to die in order that God be glorified, so that God gets the glory.
Yeah.
So when a situation turns up in your life, God must get the glory. And what good way, what other nice way for God to get the glory than us ridding ourselves of our egos?
True.
Whether it be in your marriage, whether it be in your workplace, whether it be in your friendship, whether it be in church, wherever. Exactly, Keish. In my weakness, he is made strong.
Yeah.
It is what he does that rests upon us. Because we know at the end of the day, I know what I was a real Sophie introvert. Then I went to the other end of the pendulum. You could hear my mouth from a mile away when you see I open it up on somebody. But at the end of the day, I learned, okay.
I feel there's an ego, you know.
At the end of the day, what I had to do was quell it. I don't have to go and prove myself to anybody. So that's where I would say, yeah, they know what they're doing. I'll leave it like that. I don't have to go and prove myself.
Yeah.
I don't. We don't have to prove ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
This is why Jesus knew when to go and say this. This is why he stayed with Judas all the way through. He knew what Judas was going to do.
Yeah.
And still
Mm-hmm.
accepted him, gave him the money. He was a treasurer,
Yeah.
for God's sake, a big traitor.
Mm-hmm.
How you gonna give the man who is a traitor, and you know he's a traitor, still give him the money to hold? How? And it's simply because, not because you have the power, you just wield it any way, willy-nilly. You've got to know what to do. And this is why we need the wisdom of the Lord.
Yeah.
So that we can deal with our own egotistical ways, that we're not becoming little narcissists in the name of Jesus. Let's not do that. I hope that we're not doing that and that we are committing ourselves to working our way out of our own egotistical ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And with that being said, this is how we wrap up Marriage Mentors for another time. We will have the next segment when? On that's 14 days from now, the 25th of April. That's the next segment.
Mm-hmm.
We could do a part 2. We'll see how it goes.
We have to do a part 2 because of you.
We had to do a part 2. So we could say, you've asked for it.
No, Lynden asked for it.
I didn't ask.
Don't let him lie on all, yeah?
It just happened. Look me, me saying so fast. Yeah, 2 hours flew, girl. 2 hours flew. So it's something that we can think about. So tomorrow, in everything that you're doing while you're going along through life, remember, ego is not something that you want to carry with you.
That's right.
Take the time, look at it, because it can be very deceptive, even if it's playing the victim. If you find yourself saying, everybody only fighting me down, check it. That a lot of the times, 99.99999% of the times, it's an egotistical trait jumping up and masquerading as a victim. Check it. Yeah. So this is how we wrap up Marriage Mentors. Mr. and Mrs. Mahon saying, thank you so much. Ciao for now.
Love you much.
Ladies,
Gentlemen,
married people,
courting couples,
and all our single folk,
we've got something just for you.
Marriage Mentors.
Sky 99.5 FM Reloaded is the place to be every second and fourth Thursday from 9 p.m.
to 11 p.m.
with yours truly, Mr. and Mrs. Mahon. Join the conversation as we dive deep into the taboo topics around love, marriage, and relationships. Topics like sex and intimacy,
How to live and cleave,
money,
trust issues,
infidelity,
singles in the church,
and more.
more.
So join us every second and fourth Thursday from 9 p.m.
to 11 p.m.
right here on
Sky
Sky 99.5 FM
Reloaded.
Reloaded.